Welcome back. Welcome everyone to the Limitless Mindset podcast. And I have my co-host here with me today, Machtel Vos. And this is really the first episode essentially. And the title of today's conversation is how to maintain a positive mindset in a crisis. So welcome back, Machtel. Excited
Thank you, Lee.
to be doing
It's so
this
good
again.
to be back. Looking forward.
So maybe to kick us off, how to maintain a positive mindset in a crisis. What does that mean for you, and what does that look like to you, Machtel?
Lee, if I can start, I had a good long thought about it. What is a crisis? To me, it is something that is abnormal with a lot of uncertainty and intensity, and usually probably doesn't come with any time for preparation. And probably often we don't have the skill or experience knowing how to deal with it. So that is what came to mind when I thought about it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, quite interesting. And I also thought on types of crises, what may constitute a crisis, and COVID obviously came to mind. I think it's
Hmm.
not totally out of our memory yet. Car accident or falling ill, or maybe even getting retrenched
Hmm.
were some
Hmm.
of my first thoughts on it.
Do you think that it's possible for people to maintain a positive mindset while going through a crisis? I mean, that was such a wonderful explanation of a crisis, something that you're not skilled or prepared for, something. I mean, the examples you've given. Um, but do you think it's possible for somebody to maintain a positive mindset even through all of that?
Yes, I think so. Um, now I think so. In recent times, I think I would have maybe answered differently a couple of years ago, but I definitely think so. And you?
Um, I don't think so. I know so, Machtel. I had a very visceral, very real experience around this, and I know you've heard this story hundreds of times, but I think for the benefit of our listeners, I'm going to retell this story, and then we can pick up a conversation or a discussion around it. But as you know, Machtel, I was hijacked, right? I was carjacked on the 13th of January, 2019, and it was a Sunday afternoon, 2:15 on a Sunday afternoon. It happened at a shopping center close to where I stay. So I pull into the shopping center, 2:15, all the stores were closed, parking lots empty. But I pull in and I hop out of the car and I'm looking through a furniture store windows. I was window shopping. And the next minute, this gray Volkswagen Golf pulls into the parking lot, blue lights on the dashboard. So initially, I thought it was an unmarked police vehicle. But that intuition, right, Machtel, that gut said to me, hey, something's not right here. So anyway, these guys pull into the parking lot. They roll down the passenger side window, and the driver says to me out of the window, he says, we just got a call that someone's trying to break into one of the stores here. And the next minute, the passenger in front and the passenger behind the driver jump out, firearms in their hands, one coming to me from the left front, the other guy from the right hand side. So anyway, the guy from the left front, and I'll never forget his face. It was a very short guy. He had a scar under his bottom lip. But he walks up to me, Martel, and he starts tapping my pockets, as you know, and he says, where's your car keys? And I show him, I say, it's in the right pocket here. So he takes the key out, and these guys then proceed to bundle me into the boot of the car that I was driving that Sunday afternoon. Now, I was driving a little Volkswagen Polo, and I mean, you've known me for the past 6 years now, and I'm a big guy, 6.5 foot tall, and they literally bundled me into that boot. Now, honestly, the first 10 minutes was tough, like just to try and make sense, because when you have an emotional impact like that, or I think it's that fight or flight that kicks in, and it's almost like thoughts are racing. It's almost like I'm trying to decipher, like, what the heck is going on here? Like, what's this about? It's just, so the first 10 minutes was where I was at. It was really tough. But 10 minutes later, they transferred me from the boot of my car into the boot of their car, the Golf. So there was a bit more leg room in there for a big fella. And but by then I had now already understood, okay, this is a hijacking. This is what's happening because they're asking me for certain things. So, but in the boot of their car, certain ideas started playing on the screen of my mind that were really helpful, and I'm going to share it with our listeners here, in the hope that someone listening to this today is really impacted by these ideas, and take away something that can really help them. So lying in that booth, the first thing that came to mind is I run a 6-month coaching program called Thinking into Results, something I've been through, something you've also been through as a participant, Martel. And lesson 9 in that Thinking into Results process is a lesson on attitude. So I'm lying in the booth and I hear my mentor, Bob Proctor. I hear his voice play in my mind, where he tells a story in that lesson 9 video of a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. Now, if you're listening to this and you've never heard that name before, Viktor Frankl's got quite an interesting story, and you might want to go and research the man a little bit. He was a Viennese psychiatrist who spent the war years in Auschwitz, in a concentration camp during World War II. And Bob said in that attitude video, Bob said that Viktor Frankl said, in the worst circumstance, you can search for meaning, or you can try and find meaning to
Mm.
life. Now I'm lying there. I mean, we know what happened in those concentration camps. This man seen his family murdered there. He referred to his wedding band as the last vestige of his known identity. He realized when they took his wedding band from him, they could take everything away from him except what he called the last of human freedoms, which is your and my ability to think. And he said, regardless of the intellectual, physical abuse, he could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind. Now, a lot of us, I mean, that's extreme. That's an extreme example or situation. And this man was saying, regardless of the intellectual, physical abuse, he could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind. He said it was the last thing he could hold on to. And this story played in my mind, and I'm thinking to myself, this is a tough spot, in this booth that I find myself in. But relative to what that man went through, this is probably a walk in the park. If he could choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind, maybe I can try. Surely you can try. So that was the first handy thing that came up. And the second thing that came to mind lying in the booth there is there's a speaker from the West Coast of America, from California, a speaker by the name of Michael Beckwith. And Beckwith has a 3-step approach to anything negative that you might be going through. Step 1, so I'm lying in this booth, it plays in my mind. Step 1, it is what it is, accept it. It's either going to control you or you going to control it, at least from a mental perspective. Now, very early on in that experience, Martel, I gave it over to the universe, to God. That's how I refer to him. And I said, Dad, look, whether I make it out of this alive or dead, I accept the outcome because you're in control. I mean, 4-armed guys, what was I really going to do, right? The second step in Beckwith's approach is harvest the good. There's good in everything. If you're looking for it, you're going to find it. Now, you might be sitting there listening to this thinking, gosh, what was the good in that? Because I was looking for it, I found it. My 4-year-old son, Zach, was with me that week, and he could so easily have been with me at 2:15 on that Sunday afternoon. Thank goodness he was at home. He was safe. My sister was supposed to come out with me to look at these dining tables. Thank goodness she was at home. She didn't make it. She was safe. So that was something immediately I could celebrate. And then the third step in Beckwith's approach is forgive all the rest. Forgive means to let go of completely, abandon. You know how some people tend to hold on to how someone's wronged them or hurt them, or, maybe a business relationship, that partnership that didn't end well, or, a intimate personal relationship, and you carry an emotional baggage, a divorce or separation, emotional baggage you carry. Um, the thing is, we want to let that go. We want to forgive it and we want to let it go, because forgiveness, as most of us know, is not to let the other person off the hook. It's really to free yourself. And because these three steps played in my mind, lying in that boot, I could start praying for these guys, Machtel. I prayed for their parents, I prayed for their kids. I prayed that they'd find a way to make it out of that sort of lifestyle, to make a meaningful difference in the world. Now, I'm not sharing that with you and our audience here to impress anyone, but rather to impress upon you that regardless of what's happening in your situation, whether it's that car accident, whether it's COVID, whether you're a victim of crime, whatever's happening in your world, whether it's a business challenge, you can still maintain a positive mindset going through that crisis. And why do you want to do that? All of the great leaders of the past, they've disagreed on virtually everything, but they've agreed that we become what we think about. Now, if you're becoming what you think about, why would you allow outside conditions, circumstance, person to control your thinking? You want to be in control of your thinking and directing it towards a specific end, or you want to maintain a positive mindset, because if your thoughts are going to materialize on the physical plane, or they're going to materialize, then you want to be controlling or directing that power. So they let me go 3 hours later at the back of Baragwanath Hospital here in Soweto in Johannesburg. And when they let me go, I phoned a family member, Keenan, to fetch me. And when he got there, he looked at me and he said, "Geez, I cannot believe how calm you are." And there's one other thing I want to share with our audience, Machtel, and then I'm going to hand it back over to you. It's probably the reason I was as calm as Keenan seen. I was part of a group of about 25 mindset coaches and speakers from all around the world, and we were running what was called a 90-day serenity challenge, where we were rewriting the serenity chapter from this book, As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen. We were rewriting this chapter every day for 90 days. And the challenge went like this: if you got to day 18 and you missed a day, you had to start back at day one. The goal was obviously to get to day 90. And I started with this group on the 24th of October 2018. So by the 13th of January 2019, when this hijacking happened, I'd been internalizing ideas from that chapter for 79 days. Ideas on serenity, calmness, self-control, this equanimity. And it's probably the reason I was as calm as Keenan seen. Now, I want you to think about this. Those three tools that I've just shared with you had me mentally spiraling up in the boot of that car. Now, if I never had those tools, I'd have been spiraling down and I'd have jumped out at the back of that hospital in absolute emotional wreck. You know, what's your what's your take, or what's your view on an extreme experience like that, Machtel?
So I just want to start off by commenting that I saw you the day after by chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe it when you told me about the incident. Unfortunately, I had been held up in an armed robbery a couple of years ago. And those first 3, 4 days after that, I was kind of on an adrenaline high. And I thought to myself, no, you're just still at that stage. And it turned out that you actually never had any um, negative effects, or from what I could see,
Mm-hmm.
as a result of that incident. Um, I thought about it. It took me about 2 years to feel like myself again after that incident. And I so wish I had the tools at that stage, because I'm convinced that I would have bounced back far quicker. And you have an own business, nothing stops, everything has to keep on running. So to be able to be resilient and bounce back is crucial for anyone, because I always say there are no pause moments in life. If there's an accident or an illness, the bills have to be paid, you have
Mhm.
to assist your clients. So that resilience become superpower.
Superpower.
Um, Other comment that I would like to make is uh, you said as you climbed out of the car, your intuition kicked in, and you felt something is not quite right here. Um, and I've got a few thoughts on intuition on the topic, which I'll share with you in a bit. But don't you think just those few seconds assisted you just to some extent, gather your thoughts?
Maybe I think so. Maybe to prepare mentally, because there was a feeling that something's not right. So I was
Yeah,
expecting something
yes.
out of the ordinary. So
Mm.
so yes,
Yeah, intuition is so powerful. And I just have another thought. To maybe some of our listeners from outside South Africa, it would be very strange for them to hear us sharing these stories.
yeah.
Surreal. But my house is just off a corner of a main road. And a few months ago, I was turning from the main road in peak traffic. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon. The main road is a main arterial, so very heavy traffic mornings and evenings. And I turned into my driveway, and I was waiting for my automated gate to open. And something made me just look towards the main street, and a Bucky was turning up, and I just knew instantly. So, sorry, I apologize. It was load shedding, and my automated gate wasn't working, so I climbed out of the car to open it.
Okay. Okay.
And something made me just look around, and I knew instantly. The car was probably still 50 meters away, but my intuition told me something is
Told
up.
you.
So I
Okay.
jumped back into my car and reversed back into the street. And they were obviously going to hijack me. It must have been opportunistic. They must have been driving along the road and saw this opportunity with my car door open and me standing on the outside. And then they robbed a person walking past on the way back from on the way home, walking along the pavement. But my intuition kicked in very quickly then. It was very helpful. Um, it's also a very powerful thought of yours that it's something I will remember forever, that you are in control of your thoughts. And thinking is so powerful. And of course, my modality is thinking style, so I had to think about the considerations of the impact of your thinking style on a crisis.
Let's take it down that direction. So something you mentioned earlier, and I think it's worth going over with our listeners, is you spoke about how your thinking style or how we hardwired um, really becomes prevalent in a crisis, your blind spots. So, would you like to discuss that a bit more and tell our listeners what that means and how that would work in a crisis?
Mm. So there are four main thinking styles: your result, your process, people, and ideas orientated or dominant thinkers. And we all have blind spots, and each of the thinking styles has its own blind spots. And in a crisis, our spots could become more um, nuanced or um, extreme, if I could say it like that. And
Mhm.
for instance, if you're a result driven person, they usually want all the facts before they make a decision. And in a crisis, that might not be possible, and that can lead to inaction.
Yeah.
Process driven dominant thinkers usually don't like change. So a crisis is really difficult for them. and they may focus on what they're not in control of instead of the solution because they like to be in charge of the process. People dominant thinkers may focus too much on the impact that it's having on them as opposed to the solution.
Yeah.
While ideas driven people may come up with impractical solutions or maybe unorthodox solutions that will take some getting used to or the credibility of the possible solution. So it's quite interesting, and being obviously understanding your thinking style and its possible blind spots have a lot of power in itself. Um, and the sorry.
I know we didn't plan to speak about this, but
Mm.
um, for anyone listening, you we either right brain dominant or left brain dominant. I think a lot of people know that if you're left brain, you're logical, you're process driven, you're analytical. If you're right brain, you're more creative and you have intuition. You know your intuition stronger. You're more of a feeling type of character. And just listening to you, Machtel, um, do you think people who are wired on the right hemisphere of their brain are better equipped to deal with a crisis?
So just to maybe, I prefer to say that the right may be more artistic in a way, but all the quadrants are equally creative, but in a different way. Like a left brain person would maybe more linear, for instance. So all four the quadrants have equal creativity capability, um, but the intuition of the ideas type of people might kick in and be very helpful because they're not afraid to take risks. They will go with their gut. So it may be of some advantage to them, definitely. So
So, so I mean, intuition in a crisis is a superpower, right? Because the analytical, the L2 type individual, they're gonna, bounce off the walls, how, where, they're gonna look at all the factors before they make a decision. Whereas,
yeah,
you know, the R1 individual probably just bang, make a decision. They'll know, they'll have a feeling, I got to do this, I got to move in this direction.
yeah, yeah. And I would like to mention so the fact that we might not have time for preparation or the skill or experience to know how to deal with the situation give us the opportunity to use our intuition and creativity. So those two resources can become very powerful. So I would like to spend some time on that.
Okay.
One of my favorite authors is Malcolm Gladwell,
Hmm.
and he makes a case that the brain has the capability to make very accurate decisions with very limited information. And according to him, the important elements are understanding. So we
Hmm.
often process information, but we also have to understand it. It's more important to understand it, not mere processing. Context and intuition. And he uses the biblical story of David and Goliath, where the perceived weakness of David in his small stature is actually an advantage in its agility, and the perceived strength of Goliath as a disadvantage of being slow or clumsy. So it's
Hmm.
all a matter of context and how you use it. And then creativity. Um, if I can use the example of the two major players in the photographic industry, Kodak and Fujifilm, it's a great
Yes.
example to me.
Hmm.
They both faced a crisis, the same type of crisis in the digital disruption that would affect them. Kodak didn't adapt easily and they declined, whereas Fujifilm leveraged their expertise in chemicals and imagery. And they entered totally different markets than before, being electronics and healthcare and cosmetics. So, very often, if you use the creativity, it becomes an opportunity. But it takes for us to change our mindset on the one side and to use the creativity and look for the solution rather than just to look back at the problem. So that's a very powerful example to me. That's how you can leverage your creativity. So the superpowers are there, the intuition and the creativity, and it is easy to, or it's always available, if I can say it like
So,
that.
so do you think our listeners, to help them navigate the crisis, in a more controlled or in a better way, you'd suggest they go about developing their intuition and their creative ability so that they can work their way through that easier?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
It's these are mindset tools that a lot of people don't understand, let alone actively using it or developing it. A lot of people have naturally highly active intuition, as you know, Machtel, the right
Mm.
hemisphere people. But I think, these mindset tools, people, if you're listening to this, we've got to understand these tools. There's something that, to a lot of people, that hijacking story I just told, they'll say, how on earth could you have controlled your mind in that situation? But, you know, as a mindset coach, I understand that there's certain faculties in your mind, and you're talking about these
Mm.
faculties, Machtel, the
Mm.
creativity, the intuition, mindset tools. And, people, most people can't articulate what they are, let alone use it. And, one really powerful tool is the reasoning faculty. And the reasoning faculty gives you the ability to direct your thinking. And that's exactly what I was doing in that booth, right? I was using this reasoning faculty to direct my thinking to think about something that made me feel better. And this sort of mental toughness is not something that just falls in your lap. It's something you've got to develop. And
Yeah.
and 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 the thing is, I really believe that anybody can develop it with the right guidance and with the right um, education around this particular topic. Anybody can develop it. Um, what what did you like our listeners to get from or to take away from our discussion here today?
Lee, I just want to something that I've just thought of. I think civil society almost teaches us not to trust our intuition.
Hmm.
Um, I did a self-defense course, and sometimes we feel uncomfortable, but we want to be nice. So sometimes you have to trust your intuition when it's necessary, and we get taught to suppress it. So it's good to know when you must trust it and use it. And then creativity also. We're all born with 100% creativity, but then as we grow up, we learn to suppress it. Um, we are afraid to be creative because we're afraid of failure and humiliation.
Hmm.
But it's good to practice the creativity and, you know, um, fuel it again because it's there. We all have that tremendous amount of creativity.
Hmm.
So those are thoughts that come to mind. But things that I would like to leave the audience with is firstly, trust your gut.
Hmm.
Secondly, trust your creative genius.
Yep.
Thirdly, especially in a crisis, take a whole brain approach, even if you need a soundboard. I'm aware
Can
of
you
my thinking
explain?
style and obviously my blind spots.
Can
And
you explain? Can you explain the whole brain approach a bit?
mm, so it is said that a person by themselves can uh, create a whole brain approach by doing certain exercises
Hmm.
where you are maybe have a lesser dominant quadrant. You can actually improve that. So anyone can do that with the right exercises. But for instance, in a crisis, I'm very lucky to have a twin sister. And it is said that twin sisters' thinking styles actually are mirror versions of each other, which is very special. And if you look at ours, it's truly like that. Ours is probably almost the identical mirror version. So obviously, I trust her. And I've got a person that if I have a discussion about a topic, I will definitely get the approach where I possibly lack it. So even if you have a soundboard for someone who complements your thinking style, I think that is important. Um, and then
So
lastly, I would,
if
yes.
I can just comment on that. So
Mm,
maybe just to break it down a bit more, for those listening, Machtel is very right brain dominant. You know, she lives more in the right hemisphere, very creative, think on your feet, you know, energetic. And her twin sister is more left brain dominant. So the thing is, I think what Machtel's trying to communicate to us is when you bring the two together, when you combine it, you get a more whole brain um, approach that makes those decisions more effective, or helps you navigate through problems
yeah.
in a more effective way. Sorry, Machtel, I just wanted to
No,
interject.
no, no, no. That is exactly it. Thank you. And a quote that stays with me is a quote by Nicholas Taleb, and he says, "Difficulty wakes the genius. Difficulty wakes the genius." Isn't it a powerful quote, especially in a time of crisis? So that is something I always keep in the back of my mind.
Look, that lines up with what Napoleon Hill says as well. Napoleon Hill, as you know, Machtel, one of the greatest success teachers of all time. He authored the
Yeah,
book Think and Grow Rich. And he says in moments of extreme challenge, he refers in the book, he refers to us having the sixth sense or access to something almost, not almost, something supernatural, you know, almost
yeah.
like, and he says in those moments, it's like we get access to this. So I um I love that quote. Do you want to give it to our audience again? In a
So
difficult
it's a
way,
quote.
wakes the
It's a
genius.
it's sorry, it's a quote by Nicholas
Yeah.
Taleb, and it is, "Difficulty wakes the genius."
It's also made me think on, you know, how if we go and we look at people who've achieved great feats, people who have changed the world, people who have created or invented, often if you go and you go into their story, you'll often find that there's a lot of struggle, or there's some persecution, or there's something in their story that's woken that genius. That's woke that genius. That's woken it up. So I love that, and I personally I agree with it, Martel. Um, I think what I'd like the audience, before we wrap this up, what I'd like the audience to take away from our discussion is to develop calmness and serenity. I believe that that's when you are calm through a crisis, when you are able to stay serene and composed, that's when you can think. And, you know, a lot of people, the answer might be right in front of you, or the way to get out of the crisis might be right there, but because emotionally you're in a mess and you're not in control of your thinking, you don't see it. So, my suggestion to you, get a copy of this book, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. The very last chapter is the chapter on serenity, and read that chapter maybe every day for 60 days or 90 days. Rewrite it every day, record it, listen to it often. Because when you understand the mind, and Machtel and I will get into these ideas a bit later on in this podcast series, but when you truly understand the mind, you want to internalize the ideas from something as powerful as this into the deep recesses of your mind, the subconscious portion of your mind. And only when you move it into that part of your mind, does it affect your behavior, or do you become calm? So get a copy of this book, reread that chapter over and over, rewrite it, and you know, really internalize it. I promise you, make a massive difference. You become the calmest person that you know. Would you like to add in anything before we wrap it up, Machtel?
No, thank you, Lee. I still have to do that one. it's on my list. It's on my to-do list, but I think it's powerful suggestion that you've got.
Martel, thank you for your time here today, and hopefully this has added some value out there to anyone listening. And thank you for the ideas you've shared and the stories you've shared. And I look forward to having a chat with you again on the next one.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Lee. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.